Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today, Masechtas Kiddushin daf Lamed Daled. We're going to begin on the bottom of Lamed Gimel Lamed Beis, second to last line. Kol mitzvos aseh shazman grama v'chulu. So he said that when it comes to a mitzvah aseh, positive mitzvah which is bound by time, men are chayev but women are pater. However, when it comes to a mitzvah aseh which is not zman grama, which is not bound by time, men and women must do. Also, if we're dealing with a mitzvah shlos aseh, the din is that women are also chayev. So let's understand this. Tanu Rabbanim, ezu mitzvah aseh shazman grama. So what are examples of positive time-bound mitzvahs? So Gemara gives a list, obviously a partial list: sukkah, v'lulav, shofar, b'tzitzis. So these are all mitzvahs which are positive, and there's man grama, which means women are pater. As we continue to Lamed Daled Amud Aleph, utfilin, also tefillin. So why? So Rashi says the ksavar laila loves man tefillin. He holds that we don't wear tefillin at night. Inami Shabbos v'Yom Tov loves man tefillin, or we don't wear on Shabbos or Yom Tov tefillin, and therefore it's specifically time bound. And therefore, because it's a mitzvah aseh shazman grama, they're pater. Fine. Says the Gemara, be'ezu mitzvah aseh shlo zman grama. So what are examples of positive mitzvahs which are not bound by time? A mezuzah. These mitzvahs women have to do. Have a mezuzah, a makkah around their roof, a veda if they find a lost object, b'shiluch hakain if they find a bird that they've sent it away in order to take the eggs. So perfecting Gemara, klolahu, is this truly a rule that every single time, if we find a positive time-bound mitzvah, women don't have to do them? Hari matzah. We know that when it comes to matzah, women are chayiv to eat matzah on the first night. Rashi says, leil rishon shehu chayiv d'chsev be'erev toichel matzos. V'nashim chayavos. The Gemara in Psachim says that women have to do this mitzvah. Nashim chayavos ba'achilos matzah devar Torah. They're mechuyev to. Shneimar l'soichel av chametz sheva shamim toichel av matzos. So the Gemara over there connects eating matzah to not eating chametz. Now eating chametz is mitzvah shlos aseh. So we say that kol shishnu b'mal toichel chametz yishnu b'kum echol matzah. V'nashim isnuhu b'mal toichel chametz mitzvah shlos aseh. So since not eating chametz is a mitzvah shlos aseh, so women are not allowed to eat chametz on Pesach. So therefore, they're also linking not eating chametz to eating matzah. But therefore, we see it's not necessarily true that even when it comes to a positive mitzvah, which is bound by time, it's only on Pesach, they still have to eat matzah. Furthermore, the Gemara asks about simcha, where it says in Rashi, "V'chein simcha," which means beregel. The pasuk says, "V'samachta b'chagecha." It says even uvitecha, your daughters. So you also have to have your daughter also has to be b'simcha. Exactly, is that referring to eating the carbon, eating from the shalmi simcha? But nonetheless, it's beferish. And then another question: hakel. We know hakel, as is discussed in Parshas Vayelech, only happens once in 7 years. So it's certainly zman grama. It's based on time. But it says, anoshim ataf. Everyone has to do this mitzvah, even women. So, for the Gemara, hari matzah simcha hakam shazman grama anoshim chayavos. That's question number 1. 3-part question in question 1. Question 2, v'su v'hari talmud Torah pira v'rivia upidin ben. So, in this case, these are the la mitzvah aseh shazman grama, who you can learn Torah day, night, anytime. It's not bound by time. But noshim paturos. Yet women do not have to do learn Torah. There's no mitzvah puravu. Says the Gemara in Rashi says, quoting the Gemara in Yevamos, ish matzuva al purvarivya. Only a man is mechuyev to do the mitzvah. Avlo isha, not a woman. Yovla min v'kivshuha, because it speaks about the notion of conquering. Ish darka lichvaish ve'en darka shel isha lichvaish. So therefore, because they don't fall into the category of the kivshua, we don't read puravu. So they're not chayiv in puravu. Obviously, women are necessary to have kids, but it's the men who are mechuyev to being oisik in puravu. Just bepashas, maybe it's naturally a woman who would want to have a child anyway, so therefore you don't have to. That doesn't require a tzivoy, but nonetheless, it's mitzvah saseh shaloz man grama. In upedin ben, and redeeming your first son, as we already saw it earlier in this parak, that it's dafka achiv on the father to the son. The la mitzvah shasman gramahu v'nashim paturos. So Rabbi Yochanan ein lamedim in a klolos ve'afil b'makom shner b'chutz. You're right. Even though it is a rule, we have to say the words. It's a general rule. It doesn't mean that we always apply it. It means generally this is the rule of thumb. But there are exceptions to every rule. Even if it says chutz, except, it could also be excluding other things. Did not, as we learned in Masechtas Eruvin, b'chol marabim mishtatvin, that any item you can use for eruvi chatzeros or shitufi mavois, in which the din is, if you want to be able to carry in a mavoi, so you have to be able to put food in one of the courtyards. If you want to carry in the chatzer, so you have to put food in one of the houses connected to that chutzner. So you can use any food, chutz min hamayim v'melech, but you can't use water and you can't use salt. Why? Says Rashi, demidi dezayin be'inon. You need something that gives some level of sustenance. However, these things do not provide sustenance. On there, the Gemara over there asks, "Suleika va'ika kamenu petriais." Also, when it comes to mushrooms and truffles, that you're also not allowed to use them as well, because that's also something which the Rabbanan say dulo zaini doesn't satiate. So we already learned that in Masechtas Eruvin, which we learned only maybe not too long ago, just a couple of years ago, and as that teaches us, just like when it comes to dinim of erev and shita mavois, that even though it says you can use everything except for water and salt, it also says other things. And the Gemara over there, of course, brings down other things. What about salt water? Okay. So Manon, how do we know that that's true, by the way? So we have established that these are the rules, and sometimes the rules, there's exceptions, but why? Why do women not have to do time-bound mitzvos? So Gomer mitzvillin. So we learn out from tefillin that when it comes to tefillin, which we're going to see how we know this, that women do not have to put on tefillin. So therefore, and it's a time-bound positive mitzvah, so to any other. So tefillin gomer lo mitalmud Torah. And we know that women don't have to wear tefillin because it's juxtaposed to Talmud Torah. Ma Talmud learn nashim paturos, av tefillin nashim paturos. So that's how we learn it. Because in the Kriya Shema, it says, right next to one another, it says the mitzvah of teaching your children Torah, and then right afterwards it talks about putting on tefillin. So just like women are patur from Talmud Torah, so too they're, because it says b'neichem lo b'nosechem, so too they're patur from tefillin. So v'nakish tefillin mezuzah. Why do we compare tefillin to Talmud Torah? Why don't we look at the pasuk right afterward, where a woman has to have a mezuzah? So why do you say a woman has to have tefillin? So tefillin with Talmud Torah iskish. Tefillin we compare and connect to this very interesting thing, if you don't necessarily think about it, in the Kriya Shema, the first and second paragraphs, because tefillin is connected to Talmud Torah ben b'parsha rishon ben parsha shniya, in the first and second paragraphs. However, tefillin the mezuzah, when it comes to tefillin the mezuzah, b'parsha shniya lu iskish. Tefillin is not written right next to mezuzah. You have tefillin, Talmud Torah, and then mezuzah. So it's interesting, tefillin and Talmud Torah, it's a question exactly why, is reversed between the first and second paragraphs. But they're still next to each other. However, since it's reversed in the second paragraph, we start talking about tefillin, we talk about teaching Torah, then mezuzah. Okay, the question is why is that the case? Is an interesting kasha. Why is it reversed? Why is Talmud Torah mentioned before tefillin, and then Talmud Torah is mentioned after tefillin? So B'derech drush, homiletically, some people, unfortunately, after they learn Torah, they're learning until they're bar mitzvah. And then when they're bar mitzvah, they stop learning Torah. They start going to Hebrew school, they stop learning. So the idea is, we learn Torah, and then you then you wear the tefillin, represents the first paragraph of before your bar mitzvah. And then after your bar mitzvah, even though you've already have your tefillin, you still learn more Torah. Okay. V'nakish mezuzah Talmud Torah. So why don't we compare mezuzah to Talmud Torah? And therefore, maybe women don't have to put on a mezuzah. Lo sagadaitach. Dasiv l'man yomimechem gavri boichai nashi lo boichai. The Torah says, in order that you should have a richa shomim, you should have a long life. So who would want that blessing? Only men? Women also would want a richa shomim. And therefore, it's clear that mezuzah is something they're chayav in. Okay, so question 9. Man nilmud mehekish tefillin the Talmud Torah. So what do we learn out? We learn out, just like tefillin, like Talmud Torah, so too by tefillin and all other mitzvahs asay shazman grama, the women are pater. Okay. So even though Talmud Torah is not a mitzvah asay shazman grama, but we learn out from Talmud Torah, which they're pater, tefillin that they're pater, and once they're pater from tefillin, because it's a mitzvah asay shazman grama, we compare it to all other mitzvahs. Bari sukkah, the mitzvah asay shazman grama, it's a time-bound positive mitzvah, and it says, for some reason, the pasuk excludes women and says women are not obligated in the mitzvah of sukkah. Now, why do you need a pasuk to tell you that women are pater from sukkah? It must be because really they are chayiv. Why? It must be a raya pumfakert that women are chayiv to do mitzvah saseh shazman grama, because the fact that the pasuk needs to tell you don't sit in the sukkah must be because otherwise they would have to. So Amar Rabbi, no, that's not why. It's specific by sukkah that maybe you would think, even though mitzvah saseh shazman grama women are pater, you would think that there's something unique about a sukkah. 2 reasons, as we're going to see, why they're actually why you would think that they'd be chayiv. So Amar Rabbi Itzrach Safner Chamina Hoyel Dechsib Sukkos Teishu came to Duru. There's an inyan by sukkahs that you have to dwell in your sukkah the same way in your house. So my dear Ishvi Ishto, sukkah Ishvi Ishto, just like in your house the wife and husband are together, so too in the sukkah the wife should be together with her husband, and therefore just as obviously the husband is mechuyev in the mitzvah, so she should also be mechuyev. Rabbi gives a second shot, a second reason why you would think women are chayiv, as we continue to Lamed Dalet Beis, Itzrach. Because you would think you would compare Sukkot to Pesach. They're exactly 6 months apart. They're both on the 15th of each respective month. And you would think, just like when it comes to matzah, we already established, we saw in Rashi, that women are chayav in achilas matzah on Pesach. So maybe they're also chayav in yeshiva sukkah. Kamashmon. Question 10. Amai Israch Kra Liftar Nashim Asukah V'Lei Nafigle Mehahi Mitzvah Shazman Grama. So again, we saw either the pshat is because Teishu came to Duru, or maybe we compare it to Pesach. Okay, which I think is the same question. I'm looking at this as TB2. Amai Israch. Kra de Ezrach lifter nashim and mitzvah sukkah v'harim b'lav hachi havli mitzvah say shazman grama. So indeed, that is the same question as question Lamed Daled Aleph to Lamed Daled Amud Beis. It's the exact same question. That's TB2. Just mark this down, and then we'll continue. Okay, but. The Gemara says, "V'hare re'iyah." How about when it comes to mitzvah of re'iyah? As Rashi quotes, the pasuk says the mitzvah saseh of Yerakol Zechorcha, that everyone there's a mitzvah being either oil or regel, or maybe bringing the carbon, the oilless re'iyah, as the Gemara in Chagiga discusses. V'hare re'iyah, the mitzvah saseh shazman grama, the time to kos rachmana Zechorcha l'hoitzi hanashim again. Why do you need the pasuk Zechorcha to exclude women? Alav hachi nashim chayavos. So it's the same kasha as we asked by Sukkah. So it's you would think that just like women are chayiv in hakel, which also again takes place during the end of Sukkot, so that's one of the shosh regalim. So maybe they're also chayiv to be oil regel and to bring a re'iyah. So that's the reason why you need to have the pasuk of zechorcha. So v'adi yalfina mitfilin leputura nilf mesimcha lechiyuva. Why are we learning out from tefillin? Say, oh, every positive time-bound mitzvah, women are pater. Why don't we learn out from simcha? Because it says pitecha, right? Also, you have to samachta also says your daughters. So therefore, we see your chayiv. So maybe we should learn out from one of these cases, which the mitzvah sasesha hazman grama, women are chayiv. So Rabbi isha bala masamcha. The truth is, the mitzvah of simcha is not really on the woman; it's on the husband. Almana ma'ikla meimar. How about if you're an almana, right? She would still have to do the mitzvah. So bishruya etzloi. So the people that she's living with, they are the ones who should help her out. Fine. Let's hold off 1 second. Let's look at this Rashi. V'adalfina mitfilin the petur damasnisin parach. The Gomer Komitz says man grama mitfilin petur and lifter kol nash as nashim nilv binyana b'mamatzinu. We're not from a binyana from what we find mesimcha. Shehi mitzvah says as man grama nashim chayavos. So he said it's because women are actually not chayav in simcha. The man has to make sure that she is besimcha. So nilv mahakil. So fine. We're not going to learn from simcha because maybe that's not a mitzvah. Now hakil, certainly the Torah says that women are supposed to do this mitzvah. The question is, why does the Torah mention that she has to eat matzah? And why does the Torah say that she's chayiv in hakil? It must be only those two positive mitzvos bound by time is she chayiv. However, anything else should be pater. Because if you would learn a mamatzinu, if you learn a binyanav, you only need one place, and then you could derive it from everything else. The fact that you mentioned two, because you don't need two, because one is enough. You can learn the other one from the other, unless it's a tzricha. But the point is that the fact that they're both mentioned, that's the shnei ksum ke'echad. Since you have two psukim telling the same thing, it must be telling you that's dafka there. Ve'ein malam, then you can't learn out a mamatzin to other places. So that's the idea. So women are pater from tefillin, they're pater from re'iyah. So why don't you say for carrot? Maybe only those two cases they're pater, everyone else they're chayav. Srichi. We need those two. If we didn't have both, you wouldn't be able to learn out one from the other. Why? The ikas of rachman tefillin only, v'kas of re'iyah have a mina nail for re'iyah mahakil. As we said, maybe you would think they are chayiv, just like they're chayiv in hakil, they're chayiv in re'iyah. That's why we need to mention re'iyah. The ikas of rachman re'iyah, v'kas of tefillin have a mina akish tefillin to mezuzah. You would maybe connect tefillin to mezuzah, and you would think for that reason it would be chayiv. So therefore, tzricha. That's why it needs to mention that they're pater by tefillin. Through this, again, the hekesh to Talmud Torah, and you also need it by Re'iyah. So it's a sricha, so you could still use as a mamatzinu, as a binyanav, to teach us that just like by tefillin, technically, or in Re'iyah, but from tefillin, they're pater from mitzvah shazman grama, so to all other cases. Yehochi matzah v'hakel nami sricha. So why don't we say it the other way around? Maybe matzah and hakel, you could learn out that they're actually chayiv in all mitzvah saseh shazman grama. So why is it mentioned twice? Because you need both of them. So where's the one saying? My srich. Bishlam because of rachmana hakel because of matzah. If it didn't mention matzah, as we said before, having a nail of chamishas sukkos. You would actually think the opposite. You would think that just like sukkos they're pater, so too when it comes to matzah they're pater. So therefore, you need the pasuk to tell you that they're chayiv to eat matzah. If all you did was have matzah and not hakel, I would know. The the pasuk doesn't need to mention. It could just say anashim v'taf. It could leave out women. It would be obvious if little kids have to go to hakel, then certainly women have to go to hakel, and therefore it doesn't need to mention women by hakel at all. It's obvious. And therefore, because of that, you can't learn them out. You can't learn out from them. And therefore, we all instead learn out from tefillin, even though tefillin has also re'iyah on its side, but that's a sricha. But there's no sricha by matzah and hakel. Hakel for sure, that doesn't need to mention it. So why does it mention it? It's bedavka to tell you only there are the chayiv, nowhere else. So so there's some people that say that you could still learn out a binyan av even if you have two mitzvahs, two psukim. It's only once there's three. How do we know the other way around? That mitzvahs which are not bound by time, the women must do. Diof memoira. We learn out from fear, says Rashi. Ish imoy ba'aviv tira'u. Diofin bin nashim l'el shehu oimer tira'u harkan shnayim. As we saw in Daf Chav Tes, that women are mechuyev in fearing their parents, what that consists of, the Gemara over there discusses. So we see that's a mitzvah aseh, fearing your parents, but it's shlo b'zman grama. It's continuous. So just like they're chayev in that mitzvah, so to any other non-time bound mitzvah they're chayev. Mamor nashim chayavas I've called mitzvah aseh shlo b'zman grama nashim chayavas. The nail of matam Torah. So, for the Gemara, why don't we say that they're potter, and we can learn out their potter? We can learn out their potter from Talmud Torah. In other words, just like Talmud Torah, which is not time bound, women are potter. So to any time bound mitzvah, women are potter. Mishum dehavli Talmud Torah per v'rebbe shnenksom ben kechad v'chol shnenksom ben kechad ein molamdin. You can't learn out from Talmud Torah to tell you that women are potter from all non-time bound mitzvahs, because you also have puravu, which is also a mitzvah that they're potter, which is non-time bound. Why do we need psukim to tell us that they're potter, as we said, the kivshua Rashi brought down, that women are potter from mitzvahs aseh shlo zman grama? Must be only those mitzvahs, but other times they're chayim. Therefore you can learn out from Moira. As we continue Lamed Hamad Alf. Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika, and according to him, the Omer al Shneim hu Omer v'yavarach Oisem al Kim Puravu, that the man and the woman both have a chiyuv on the mitzvah of Puravu. So Malachim Eimar, right? So you can go back to that kasha. The Mishum dehavile Talmud Torah pidin a bench neksum boin kechad v'chol neksum b'echad boin kechad in Mulamdin. So even though it's true, maybe there is a mandi armor that says that women are also mechuyev in the mitzvah of puravu. However, that person still has the issue, because not only is there Talmud Torah, there's also Pidyon Ben. And Pidyon Ben is another place where we find that even though it's not time bound, even though it says on day 30, but it means if it wasn't done, you can do it at any time afterwards. You're supposed to do it right away, but it's afterwards. It's not time bound. So therefore, we see again, you can say Shnei Ksum Boin Kechad Ein Malamdin. Why does the Torah go out of its way to say that you're potter in these two mitzvos? Because they're not time bound, must be everywhere else they're chayiv. Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika namen havi periverivia umayr Shnei Ksum Boin Kechad Ein Malamdin. Now, according to him, you could ask the other way around, because now that he holds puravu, they're chayiv, and we also know that the pasuk goes out of its way tira'u, that women are chayiv in fearing their parents. Those are two positive, non-time bound mitzvos that women are chayiv. Maybe then you can't learn out a binyan av, ma'atzinu, stricha. But if you need both of them, so you can still learn it out as a binyan av. What's that? The ikas rachmana mayra v'oikas of periverivia havamina v'kivshua rachmana. The pasuk says v'kivshua, to conquer. Ish the darka lichvash in. Men have a chiyuv to conquer. They're the ones who fight and conquer, so therefore only they have a mitzvah puravu. Ish the ein darka lichvash lo. But a woman who does not fall into this category of lichvash will not be obligated in the mitzvah puravu. That's why you need according to this man de Omer, that even though that's taka the shita of the other opinion, but he said because I don't hold like that, but you would maybe think like that. That's why the pasuk needs to mention that they're going to be chayiv because of Puria Verivia. Because of Moira, if it doesn't mention about fearing, havamina ish the sibim biyadalasos in ish de and sibim biyadalasos low. As we saw before, a man always has the ability to fear his parents. However, a woman in the situation where there's a conflict between her and her husband, she's supposed to side with her husband and not with her parents. So therefore, because there's times where she wouldn't be mechuyev anyway to do the mitzvah, maybe she's potter completely. So therefore, at this point, we're going to stop here because it just keeps going. Lamaskana, at this point, I should say, when it comes to the mitzvah saseh shazman grama, that women are potter, we learn out from tefillin. That just like tefillin, which we learn from Talmud Torah, women are potter, so to all mitzvah saseh shazman grama, women are potter. On the other hand, every mitzvah saseh shalozman grama, women are chayiv, and we learn out from moira, from fearing the parents, so that there's a chiv of showing this element of moira to the parents, and that's something which is not time-bound, and therefore all other non-time-bound mitzvahs, also women are going to be chayav to do. Okay, that is it. Let's see if there's any more questions. Nothing here. Question TB, we did some of it. Let's see, did we finish it? No, nothing on there. TA1. Heichen Metzinu, where do we find B'Torah mitzvah saseh shloazman grama shenashim chayavos? Where do we find a situation where we have a mitzvah saseh shloazman grama, which is not bound by time, and women are chayiv? Echad u'kuliyam ve'echad l'chad ma'ader mechutz mimezuzah. Not mezuzah. Okay. So we see, first of all, when it comes to moira, when it comes to fearing, and also according to one mandem, as we just said, also puravu. Adkan.